Oh, tears from my eyes, falling over my face, and rolling down my cheek. You're one and only one. Just one kiss. Stop the rain from the sky. Or tears from my eyes, falling on my face, and rolling down my cheek. All I know is I love you, and if I live forever, I'll be loving you still. You will always be just everything to me. So hold me back and bring the sound down. Let me be your one and only one. With just one kiss, stop the rain from the skies, or tears from my eyes, falling over my face, and rolling down my cheek. Oh yeah. Whoa. Yeah, yeah. Whoa, with you. All I know is I love you, and if I live forever, I'll be loving you still. You will always be just everything to me. So hold me back and bring the sound on. Let me be your one and only one. With just one kiss, stop the rain from the skies, or tears from my eyes, falling on my face, and rolling down my cheek. Rolling down, yeah, yes, it's rolling down. Whoa, rolling down. People, can't you see and know what is really going on? It's the same old things, it's nothing new. More than 2,000 years ago, the good Lord sent me from Zion. The good Lord, He sent me down. The good Lord sent me from Zion. The good Lord, He sent me down. pickpockets and the thieves and all those that bust gun upon them brethren for nothing at all and keep on robbing the innocent man night and day. Tell me, oh, you that go walk with Jah when your dirty ways not right. You open your gun upon my innocent man. So tell me, oh, you that go walk with Jah. It will be pretty flowers and gold box. For you got to meet your Waterloo. You open fire down in a Rima in a Franklin town there too. Hey, first I go run tonight with a red, blue, pink or white. You don't live up in this world life, come on. So tell me, oh, you don't go walk with Jah. That's something. What a fight. What a controversy. What a lullaby on the tractor when the rice cannot dry. Why? It will be pretty flowers and gold box. Start to laugh after Rasta man locks. Oh, you never face yourself, you are an idiot. Tell me, oh, you never walk with Jah. Something going go wrong tonight. Those dirty ways not right. You use your own teeth to cut your own throat. Tell me, oh, you never walk with Jah. It better go ring on your door. Because you cheat and oppress the poor. Just see and know they cannot take it no more. Lord, separation knocking on their doors. Hey, tell me, oh, you don't go walk with Jah. When you greedy belly too full, you bite off too much more than what you can chew. I'm craving a good puppy.
We're poor, Ashe. We're poor to the creative spirit, the great Ashe out of which we all emerge, Ashe. We pour to that creative spirit by whatever name we know it, whatever name you hold in your heart, in your mind, whatever name your ancestors gave, whatever name you learned as a child, whatever name you believe it to be, whatever name you believe it to be in spirit or in science, Ashe. We pour to the first human beings who came into existence on this planet, the first human beings who raised the first structures, who cooked the first meals, who taught the first children, who had the first children, the first Africans, the first people, who stood upright, who walked, who figured out how to stay on this planet, who figured out how to pass that knowledge on to their children and their children's children, the mothers and fathers of civilization, Ashe. We pour the next libation to their grandchildren, their children's children, those who raised the great early civilizations of Kemet and Kush and Monomotapa, the great medieval civilizations of Ghana and Mali and Songhai and Kanem Bornu. We pour to those who the great civilizations of the Igbo people and the Hausa people and the Kikongo people and the Mambara people, the great Mande civilizations, the great Kikongo, the great civilizations of Southern Africa, the Bantu people, the great civilizations of Southeast Africa, the Dinka, the Shilluk, the Noor. We pour to those millions who raised the foundations from which the world would learn what it meant to be human in the world, Ashe. We pour to their children who, upon the arrival on the shores of people they had never seen before, found themselves themselves captured and marched overland, found themselves perishing by the millions before they were held on the holding cells and the open-air pens on the coast of West, Central, Southern, and East Africa. We pour to the ancestors who did not know as they were stripped of all clothing and sent denuded into boats, packed like animals, and strewn their bones across the floor of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We pour to them who in the last moment on Africa grabbed the sand and grabbed the dirt and put it in their mouths and understood that the only thing they might have to preserve their place in that continent was their memory of that place and their ability to pass it on to their children. We pour to them, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to those Africans and their children who finding themselves cast adrift in Santiago, Cuba, who found themselves cast adrift in Porto, Spain, Trinidad, and Port-au-Prince, Haiti, who found themselves cast adrift in New Orleans and Charleston and Mobile, who found themselves cast adrift in Salvador, Bahia, who found themselves cast adrift in Barbados and the archipelago that formed the wayward and the windward coast. We found them in these places learning Portuguese and Spanish and French, whose often first words was, "Oh my God, oh Madre de Dios," who found themselves praying to survive and pass on to their children the memories. We pour to those ancestors who are represented in the thousands buried in all the square miles of where we stand, and who sit here buried before us in 400 caskets forged of wood from West Africa with Adinkra symbols. Each one of them, each woman, man, and child, symbolic of millions. The children of those who could not be killed, we pour Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who somehow survived the hells of enslavement and fought for emancipation in the Caribbean, the French, British, Dutch Caribbean, who fought for emancipation in South America, who fought for emancipation in Central America, who fought the struggles we refer to as the Civil War in the United States, who came out of that, marched out of enslavement through Reconstruction, and found themselves making great migrations, eventually ending up in places like New York. Their children's children, who making a way for themselves, became our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents. Those who, when the first bones were discovered in this space, held their hands and said, "Stop, no more." We are here to speak for those who can no longer speak with their mouths. We pour for those ancestors, some of whom came to Howard University in 2004 and followed these caskets all the way back to New York. The ones whose names we know and the ones whose names we don't. And at this moment, as we pour this libation, I would ask anyone who feels comfortable to say the name of someone in your bloodline who is no longer physically here, but who you know made it possible for you to be here. Go ahead, let's hear the names.
Evelyn Glover.
We pour to the names that we hold collectively. Ganga Zumba in Brazil. Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe in Haiti. We pour to the great Avengers, Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica. We pour to the great ancestors, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass. Say the names that you study. Who are the names of the ancestors that you have come to hold in your heart and your mind as you hope that you can do what they did for us, for your children and children's children? Let's say some of those famous names. Malcolm X, Lou Hamer, John Henry Clark, John G. Jackson, Jacob Carruthers. And finally, two final libations. We pour to those who make it possible for us to do what we do. We pour to these rangers who stand guardian over this sacred space. We pour to these Africans and these folks who have come from Howard University, the staff, the faculty, the administrators who brought us here today to bear witness. This is not a libation, but an affirmation, because their hearts still beat, their tongues still speak, their minds still think, and their minds still wish the best for us. We pour for all of those people who surrounded us on this journey today and made it possible for us to be here. We pour this affirmation of thanks, Ashe.
Ashe.
And finally, we pour to your children's children's children who will one day stand on this space and speak your name. Ashe.
Ashe.
It's so nice to be residence. It's so nice to be with you. come from up on the side of town, and we have come just to play ourselves. All we need is peace and love. In this residence, it's so nice to be in this neighborhood. It's so nice to be here. Everyone is having fun. Everyone singing along. It's a residence. Oh, just give thanks and praise to Jaja. In this residence, in this residence. Oh, it's so nice to be in this residence. It's so nice to be here with you. We gonna let Jaja music play. We gonna let Jaja music play. We got to see how better day in this residence. Travel from the power side of town, and we just got to play our sound. And it's already there, it's already there. It's so nice to be with you. Brothers and sisters, come along now. Ooh. Come along now. It's so nice to be in the residence. It's so nice, 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 nice. Don't want to know what. We don't want to know strike.
Dr. Rupert Rutherford's death was announced by Dr. David Hines, co-leader of the Working People's Alliance, WPA, who hailed him as quote-unquote one of the leading voices of our post-colonial experience. His legacy is marked by decades of tireless activism, academic contributions, and public service. Dr. Rutherford's return to Guyana in 1977 marked the beginning of a profound involvement in the country's political development through the WPA. A passionate advocate for multi-ethnic politics and national unity, he firmly believed that true progress required collective advancement across all communities. His commitment to coalition politics and national governance helped shape discussions that eventually influenced the formation of the Coalition, a Partnership for National Unity, underscoring his vision of inclusive governance. Beyond his political endeavors, Dr. Rutherford was an esteemed scholar and cultural advocate with a strong foundation in English literature. He served as a lecturer at the University of Guyana, where he notably studied the poetry of Martin Carter. His intellectual pursuits extended into filmmaking and public scholarship, reflecting a lifelong dedication to Caribbean radical thought and the empowerment of the working class. His journey was not without sacrifice. He endured political detention during tumultuous periods, and at times chose activism over academia to fulfill and to fully commit to the cause. In paying tribute to this stalwart of a man, Dr. Hines emphasized that Guyana is better in many regards because of Rupert Rutherford, a man who uniquely fused intellectual depth with unwavering political conviction. Although he had been declining in health in recent years, Rutherford's influence remains deeply embedded in the national discourse. As the country reflects on his life and legacy, tributes continue to pour in from across political divides, honoring a figure whose impact on Guyana's modern political history
is both profound and enduring. I'm Antonio De reporting for the HEP Nightly News.
Never you take me such a paradise. Never you take me such a don't take him paradise. Oh, some take coffee, some take tea. You know that man is with a man celebrity. Rock dance the town and get country. All of the girls and love me. The wickedest time when the rain start fall. The girl them start to ball. Who not send telegram? Never make fool God. Said you want me armor, be till my wall. When I spring winter, summer or fall. This year and it way. You can run the dance on. Oh, you know my name.
Of your invitation to appear before you here today to talk about Black child development under white supremacy. A very, very important topic indeed, because it is the root of many of the issues and problems that we discuss so often in these types of forums. I, of course, think it is very important that when we talk about the Black child, that we have some idea of who or what the Black child is. Because too often we hear people saying, I happen to be Black. You know, as if Black is something that fell on us, unfortunately, some misfortune, you know. And also there's the implication often in that kind of phrase that except for our Blackness, we are just like everybody else. So consequently, we are colored people, you know, we've just been colored over, but in a sense, we are white people who just happen to be Black. It's much deeper than that, ladies and gentlemen. The Black child is unique. It is not a duplicate of the white child. It is not a colored rendition of white children. It's very important that you know that, because if you start off with that premise, no matter how good your intentions, you're going to do a disservice to your children. If you're going to do the right things about your children, you must know them, which means that you must study their history and their psychology. You cannot study the history of Europeans and the psychology of the European child and apply that psychology directly to Black children. One of the major problems in education today is that we have a school system, and your children have inherited a school system that was designed to teach the white child. A school system that is based on the developmental psychology of white children. That psychology develops out of the history and experience of a people. Psychology, you must recognize, reflects the individual's history and experience. That is why if you go to a psychologist's office, psychiatrist's office, or social worker's office, they must take your case history. They cannot reach into the files and get anybody's case history and say, now let me see and let me explain you in terms of this case history. They have to speak directly to you and get that information from you.
People strong, you cannot deny. People strong, open your eyes. People strong, and feel the vibes. A message of love again. We send a message of love again. Almost every leader hide the truth, cause them prophet as a real liar. Only reggae music like a breeze with the truth, it blaze the fire. The lessons in our life come the hard way, and we slip and we still fall. But the love between we and God is solid. This is just a reminder. Cannot deny people strong. You cannot deny people strong. Open your eyes. People strong. Feel the fire. Breeze of love. Fire of love.
make you have a clean hand.
Otherwise, they misinterpret you. Why do they get a case history? Because they recognize that to a very significant extent, the way a person sees the world, relates to the world, behaves in the world, the attitudes, feelings, and emotions, that person's abilities and so forth are intimately related to that individual's unique history and experience. The same thing is true of a people. The history and experience of African American people is not the history and experience of European American people. These histories are diametrically opposed. We have some Negroes who run around and say, I am an American. They live in abstractions. Meaningless term. Besides, if it had meaning, it wouldn't mean the same thing for the two people. Because the African American experience of slavery in the United States is not the white American experience of slave mastery in the United States. A whole psychology comes from these two histories. A whole set of attitudes, a whole way of seeing the world and dealing with the world comes from these two histories. So you're both saying that you are American does not resolve the difference and does not resolve the psychology. Consequently, you cannot hide behind euphemistic platitudes about being an American or being a human being or all these other words you've used to escape your reality and your history and get away.
Hear me clearly. At birth, black boys outnumber black girls 1.03 to 1.0. A brief 18 years later, it is now 1.0 available, and that's the key word, available black men to 1.8 available black women. Almost 2 adult women for every 1 adult man. Now, the only question that should be going through your minds right now is what happened? We keep raising the wrong question. We keep asking, why do black men hang on corners? Why do black men lack direction? Well, if you ask this question, you're asking the question 18 to 30 years too late. It is not a conspiracy to destroy black men. It's a conspiracy to destroy black boys. If you destroy him as a boy, he'll never become a man. Not gonna look around the room and tell you know where are they. If they are not available to black women, where are they? Call the road. In jail, there are 329,000 brothers in prison right now. 1 of every 4 brothers will go to prison. Where else? Or death. There's numerous ways that we die. There's homicide, suicide, drugs, war, high blood pressure, and the leading killer among black men, lung cancer. Our love for cigarettes, especially cool. Smoke them all day long, die the exact same way. Cool. Where else? We have prison, death. What else to make us unavailable to black women? Yes, homosexuality. As you said earlier, 1 of every 9 men in this country are homosexual. Where else? Yes.
Hospitalized, institutionalized.
Okay, so institutionalization, and there's not only in terms of hospitals, but also mental institutions, and of course, when they get released, many times being homeless. There's still one other large popular area. Thimby?
They marry white women.
Okay, interracial marriages. Now I want to pause here for a moment, because you would think if anybody is going to marry outside the race, it would be black women. You got 2 black women for every 1 black man. But as Thimby pointed out, it's exactly the opposite. There are 164,000 interracial marriages, of which 116,000 are brothers. That means 48,000 sisters. It's almost a 2-to-1 ratio of black men to black women marrying outside the race. But remember, as you said in the earlier workshop, if the definition of beauty is light skin, long hair, and blue eyes, why stop with Renee, the light skinned sister? Why not get you the real thing? Got some serious problems here. And then black men tell me, I can't find a black woman to understand me. You mean out of 20 million black women, you can't find one to understand you? You don't need a white woman, you need a psychiatrist. But
89.3 on the FM dial, WRFG Atlanta. Your station for progressive information and hand-picked quality music, coming in hot on a rainy afternoon in Atlanta. We're grateful for the rain all the while. Tefnut, as the ancient Egyptians say, coming from the sky by the grace of the Most High to nourish the crops, to hydrate the roots, you know what I mean, to refresh the rivers and the streams. We give thanks for the rain. 404-523-8989 is the number where you can reach us here in the studio, 404-523-8989. We've been hearing from some greats as we go in. This is the Ancestral Rock, of course, so we deliberately feature the voice of people who have gone before us in the spirit of the reality that, you know, energy is never created or destroyed, it's only transformed. And so, as one of our Jegnas would always say, Nana Clark, the events that transpired 5 minutes ago, 500 years ago, or 5,000 years ago directly affect that which will transpire 5 minutes from now, 500 years from now, 5,000 years from now. All history is a current event. So we brought to the witness stand Dr. Amos Wilson, prolific author, psychologist, great thinker. One of the books, of course, that he authored was The Psychological Development of the Black Child. And we heard a little bit from Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, who is still with us in the flesh in this world. Of course, one of his great popular works from, as we say, back in the days. And as I bring my special guest on for this hour, we're going to ask the question, are his works still relevant? Is that still a relevant thing, or is that just a blast from the past that we can let go because we've come into a new type of living? He's talking about countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys. And I speak of my special guest. As we were preparing for this program, we thought of this proverb, which we may repeat often up here, which basically says that those who say it can't be done should not get in the way of those doing it. Those who say it can't be done should not get in the way of those doing it. And that's the mild version. I'll probably add some spice to it, but I'm not going to do that this afternoon. It's just it's a real thing, you know. We have a lot of poetry and a lot of we wax poetic about the long problems which we face, and there's nothing wrong with facing or acknowledging that which may be something of a barrier to our peace, joy, and power, our natural, our birthright. And sometimes the poetry is not so long and profound about the solutions. So today we have on the program a brother Atiba Jones, who is founder of the Save Institute. Brother Atiba, welcome to the Ancestral Rock. I don't know if this is your first time here. I wouldn't want to say welcome again, but either way, welcome to the Ancestral Rock. Good afternoon to you. Assalamu alaikum.
Good afternoon. Like salam. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. And Ramadan Mubarak, of course. Yes, sir. So as I was coming in, you know, I was being a little facetious, but not really, you know, in asking the question, you know, Dr. Kunjufu, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, years ago in the 80s, talked about the conspiracy to destroy black boys. And I thought of that when I thought of Save Institute in terms of the work you're doing. And I want to ask the question to you first and foremost. Do you think that that scholarship that he shared with the world so many years ago is still relevant? Is it still something that should be discussed? Or have we
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's probably even more relevant than it was even, 20 years ago when some of his works, were really coming out, even more than that. So I have all of his books, and his works have really been a big inspiration for me. All you have to do is just look at the statistics, right? Black boys, black male youth are at the top of the list of like every negative statistic, so they are getting wiped out rapidly, and it's very alarming, very concerning. And the question is it because that's how they are naturally, that are they just naturally inherently like bad or evil, or is there something happening that's making it that way? So that's the question.
So that's the question, and I want to ask you to answer that question as we go along with this conversation, because, of course, again, I was just inspired to share that proverb, and I feel like I'm onto something, just having observed the work of Save for many years, and I wanted to make sure we invited you on the program to talk about it. Some of the things that are coming up, even as the spring unfolds. So first and foremost, they say you don't know the author. If you don't know the history of the author, you don't know what you've read. So for those who don't know you, Brother Atiba, just tell us a little bit about you, and even in that respect, give us a little bit of the impetus for Save Institute. Why was this something you felt inclined to put forth to the world?
Yeah, so I'll take it back a bit. Really, coming here down to Atlanta at 17 years old to move to begin college at Morehouse. I came with the intention of becoming an engineer and going that route. And then so my first 2 years in school, I began to really receive a lot of bad news from back home. A lot of the guys I knew growing up, they were beginning to get killed. Many of my own cousins were starting to go to prison and many other negative things. And simultaneously, I'm meeting all of these, young men from around the country and realizing that a lot of these same dynamics were taking place all over the country. Right. It wasn't just, my personal story. Right. This was something that we're seeing, repeatedly everywhere. And I began to get a bit frustrated and felt like I needed to go down a career path that was a little bit more meaningful, right? That could really bring about some impact in the world. But I didn't know what it was or what that would be until I had the opportunity to travel abroad for a few months. I went to Damascus, Syria, and had the opportunity to work with orphan boys there. And it was during that moment where it just kind of just struck me like a light bulb going off, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, dedicating my life to uplifting youth. So I came back to school that following semester, changed my major to education. That's all I've been doing ever since.
Wow. That's a clear testimony. So you were inspired to do this work based on circumstances maybe beyond your control. You said home. Where's home? Where you came from?
Philadelphia.
Oh, from Philadelphia. Okay. In Philadelphia, I came to your city many years after you left. I went to teach there between 2007 and 2010. And when I got there, that's all people tell me, yo, you in the murder capital of the United States.
Philadelphia.
Funny enough, I didn't see that. I saw one thing that jumped off that was kind of intense. It was a street brawl that I ain't never seen anything like that. I've seen brawls, being a big sports fan and all that, from time to time you see, it's the bleachers empty and all this kind of stuff, but I've never seen something so intense. However, I also felt a lot of cooped up energy. I saw, I could draw many pictures and many what's that scientific word when you have a thought? It's slipping me right now, but basically, I could draw many types of scenarios in my mind as to why this was like this, just from witnessing the environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we not everywhere that is cold you have a lot of violence. They say Iceland and some of the places are some of the most peaceful places in the world. However, when you look at the factors, when you factor in the things like the specific and very direct racially based assault on African people that has been carried on without cessation for 300, 400 years, when you think about environmental racism, when you think about so many different things, it makes sense why, a place like Philadelphia and many other places would have that type of distinction, if you want to use that word. So you mentioned going to Syria and seeing and working with orphans, and that being like the icing on the cake, if you want to use that terminology, in terms of that inspiration just crystallizing in you that, okay, I need to work with the children. So where did you move? Where did you go from there? You say you changed your major, then what happened next?
Yeah, so even while I was still in school, I started working with youth, working at after school programs and summer camps and many different things like that. I ended up getting my degree in educational psychology. Right after school, I worked at a youth mental health hospital. That I went into youth counseling for a while. then started teaching, running programs, after school programs, summer camps, starting programs. Ended up starting another private school in 2008, which ran for about 6 years, and just really, worked with every age group, in every aspect of youth development there was. But I realized, of all of the different things I participated in terms of youth development and all the wonderful organizations and schools, things were not getting any better. Right? Actually, things continued to get worse. And I knew it was something wrong. So I ended up actually going back to school. 2015, I got a master's degree in educational leadership, which allowed me to really have the opportunity to research a lot of different educational models from around the world. And I kind of even zoomed in on agricultural schools, right? And I did a lot of research on agricultural schools around the country as well as other countries. And I found some really good models and saw some very effective tools that were being used. And really, the idea was like, okay, how can we bring together all of these most effective tools that there are for youth development? And that's really where the acronym of and pillars of SAVE came from. So service, agriculture, vocational training, entrepreneurship. These are all different tools that have been proven, right? Not by me, but by so many others, been proven to be so effective. However, I've never found anywhere where they were all brought together. It's a lot of service-based programs, a lot of agricultural programs, a lot of vocational training programs, a lot of entrepreneurship programs that are operating, just kind of focusing on those things. So that's when the idea came to bring these elements together as one formula to uplift youth.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I want to ask you, I happen to know that SAVE Institute deals with boys. Is there a reason why you chose to focus on young men?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same reason why when you go into an emergency room, there's certain people that will get, pushed to the front over others who may have been there first, right? That the triage system, right? You have to really deal with the ones who are in the most urgent need, or else it might be too late, right? So, and that's what we're really dealing with when we're talking about, Black boys, young Black men. They're being slaughtered in masses. They're being taken out. They're being lost in disproportionate rates, faster than anyone else. There's no other group that is as vulnerable as this population, Black male youth. And that's across like almost every negative statistic. So that's why.
Clear. We're talking with Brother Atiba Jones, 47 minutes after the hour of 2. That's 13 minutes to the hour of 3. We're here until 4 o'clock. 404-523-8989 is the number if you want to join the conversation. 404-523-8989. You're tuned in to the Ancestral Rock, and we're speaking with Brother Atiba Jones of SAVE Institute. As the young people say, I'm today years old when I find out what the acronym means. I mean, because the word itself is clear, you know what I mean? The acronym. So again, service, agriculture, vocational, education, and what's the entrepreneurship? Yes, beautiful. So what, if you don't mind, just for those who are listening who may not be in Atlanta, may not even be able to partake in some of the offerings that you have, what were some of the models, just briefly, what were some of the things you saw in those models that you looked at when you took a second look and you started looking at agricultural schools that really kind of inspired you? What were some of the characteristics, if you will?
Yeah. So I want to relate it back to something that you mentioned in terms of like your observations in Philadelphia and in other places. So as you know, Philly is a very urban center, and in so many of our major cities kind of compete for being on the highest list of murder rates and a lot of other negative things, right? And what they have in common is that they're all these major cities that have all of these people squashed together in these urban concrete jungles, right? And so that's not the only issue. It's a lot of other things that have caused things to be this way. However, we know that the nature of urban environments with so many people, but specifically like urban concrete jungles. It has this way of pulling us away from who we naturally are as human beings, right? And we become something else that is, almost not even human, one could argue.
Mm-hmm.
However, the nature of nature is that it brings us back to our own human nature, right? That nature of goodness,
Mm-hmm.
right? How we were created.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed and observed about agriculture is, even before you even talk about all of the amazing things about growing food and all of that, but just focusing on people having an opportunity just to be in nature, and what that does for the human being is massive. It's really huge. So just that alone, youth being able to spend a lot more time in nature has proven to have great results. And then when you combine that with being able to actually grow food, being able to provide for themselves and their families, being able to even benefit economically, and so many things, it just is the results are just very clear. You get a different type of human being that, once you expose them to agriculture and the benefits of it, and really make that a part of their daily routine. And there was one particular school I have to mention when I was doing that research. It's an agricultural school down in South America, in Paraguay. And it's called the Escuela Agricala. And they have a beautiful model. It's called the school that pays for itself. And, the nickname is the school that pays for itself, because they have a beautiful farm operation that the students are running, right? So they're running, so many different aspects of the farm, and earning money. So at that time, like years ago, it was like, the annual budget was like 250,000, and they generated, over $250,000 annually to cover the expenses of the school, making it a school that was free. So that really stuck out to me. So it's not only they're getting the benefits of learning agriculture, but it's this quality private education that they don't have to pay for. So I knew that was something that we had to build here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That seems like, as you said, a very profound thing you said earlier about nature and the nature of nature. One of the things Dr. George Washington Carver really left with us as a lasting legacy, a thought, even a charge, is the whole thing about the gift that keeps giving,
Yes.
So when you think of things like the greens, as a gardener myself, you think of greens, we talk about them as the gift that keep giving, that keep just, the kale and the cabbage and the broccoli and all that, you cut off the leaf and it comes back again. And just observing nature, that's a very profound basis for establishing an institution dealing with natural people. I mean,
Yes.
It seemed like we, in the I don't even say we, I ain't gonna put myself in that mess. In the Western world, a lot is done completely in defiance, even I would say, of nature.
Yes.
Even in defiance. So I want to go back a little bit, Brother Atiba. You talked about coming down here to school from Philly, and without getting too personal, I'm just interested if you've gained any insight as to if there was any factors in your upbringing that made it different for you than all those homies that you started getting the bad news about back home. Was it just you got a break to get away from there? It could have been the same thing, or is there anything? I'm getting to a point, but I first want to ask you about that in terms of the grounding that you had before being able to come out to school.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very, very clearly, actually. So I mean, the reality was that I had two parents at home that had very high standards for me, and especially my father, who not only just acted as a great example for me, just being there in the home, working hard, but watching him out in the community, like really working and fighting to save so many of the young brothers in our community, in our neighborhood, right? He was one of the only ones that like had the courage to go out there to the guys on the corner and fuss at them. And all of them were actually just like listen out of respect, right? So just watching his example and and he would spend so much time just teaching me, and and I think as a teenager I didn't appreciate it as much, actually. But once I got a chance to go away to school and really start experiencing the world a little bit, like, so much of what he taught me was just coming back. I was like, I kept hearing his voice and so many different things. So but it was it's very, very clear, just having not only a strong mother who was also an educator, but a strong father in the house that was a good example and a teacher for me.
Give thanks. Give thanks. 404-523-8989, 54 minutes after 2, 6 minutes to the hour of 3. We're here until 4 o'clock. You're tuned into the Ancestral Rock. For those of y'all joining us via terrestrial radio, it might be your first time checking out, and you got to get back into, you're hanging on to every word, and you got to get back into the office. You can check us out on wrfg.org. You don't have to miss the connection at all. Take us into the office. Take us into the home with you. If you don't have a radio in the home these days, wrfg.org, and you get the fullness of the sonic experience. We're reasoning with Brother Atiba Jones of the SAVE Institute. He's talking about some of the work that he's been inspired to establish along with family, colleagues, and everything, which gives the city of Atlanta another option of an institution, a body of work to support. Again, we often repeat that proverb that was taught to us by Dr. Bonseke Fukia, who, among other things, authored the African Art of Babysitting. He says, Simba Simbi, hold up that which holds you up. Hold up that which holds you up. So between those two things, between the imperative of supporting that which is bringing good into the world, because if it's bringing good to the world, even if it doesn't so-called directly influence you or directly affect you, it absolutely does in one way or the other. That's just the reality of it, right? We're very closely related, and we're seeing so many different examples of that reality as time moves on. So we're grateful, Brother Atiba, for these minutes you're sharing with us. I want to get more into the weeds, no pun intended, in terms of SAVE and some of the programming that SAVE offers. First of all, how long has SAVE been around?
So it's about 7 years as an organization, and we're in our 5th year as a private school.
5 years, and to sustain anything for more than 5 months in this world is a great feat. So we're grateful, and I'm sure you've had a lot of support. I want to ask you that straight up. Do you feel supported by the community in terms of this work that you're doing? I mean, a lot of people, I for myself, speaking for myself, time after time after time after time, this program is the Ancestral Rock, and it's funny because every Thursday I come up here, it seems like we're announcing the transition of another stalwart, another person who has done great work. And when you go to their homegoing, you see reflections. It's like, man, I wish I would have done more. I wish I could have done more. I wish, I had really understood what these people were doing. This whole thing about giving flowers to the living and all that. So I'm asking that question because with the work that SAVE is doing, which I think no one would argue is important work, and the amount of time that we spend as a global community on social media talking about problems and in other places, I wonder, are we putting our muscle where our mouths are when we see people like SAVE, institutions like SAVE doing that? So you ain't got to be afraid of no backlash. Just answer that question straight up. You feeling supported by the community?
So I'll say yes, I do, right? And I think I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because sometimes it can feel very lonely. Sometimes it can get very frustrating where we need so much more funding and so much more resources than we have, and just the struggle of really keeping an institution like this going that's operating as a private tuition school free a tuition free school. It's it can get a bit difficult, right? Just looking for more and more support. However, I have to remind myself of all of like the thousands of people at this point who have donated to the organization, all of the hundreds of parents who have placed the their trust in us to help develop their sons, all the people who have shown up over these past 7 years to support the work that we're doing, right? I have to be extremely grateful for that. Yes, we need more support. We need more support. We need more funding. We need all of that. However, I have to just really just show so much gratitude to all of the people, organizations and corporations who have supported us to get to where we are and allowed us to still be going at this point.
Give thanks. Give thanks. We're talking with Atiba Jones. It's WRFG Atlanta. It's top of the hour. 404-523-8989 is the number in the studio. WRFG.org is the link for all things regarding the station, including where you can always send a donation. This radio station is 53 years young. And as Brother Atiba is saying about his organization, Save Institute, we have a motto up here that untouched by the sweaty hands of corporate greed and commercial greed. We don't go to the weapons manufacturers or any of that for funding. We have been sustained by the grace of the Almighty, which manifests through the support of you all, the community. This is listener-supported radio. Imagine being a great thorn in the neck of all the corporate entities that wish to sanitize the news. The media is called the fourth estate for good reason. And being able to do that loud and proud for 53 years, that's something serious. So as we talk to our brother Atiba, I'm reminded of the fact that it's something that is very possible. And it's something that's being done, Brother Atiba, all over the world, that people are actually coming together and putting their resources where it really matters, where it makes a difference. So I feel encouraged, and I pray you continue to feel encouraged by that reality. So let's talk about some of the programming the Save Institute offers, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started out initially doing different types of outreach programs. So we put on camping trips, retreats, workshops, and different programs like that for Black boys and young Black men for the first 2 years. And from 2019, 2021, fall 2021, that's when we launched the full-time private school. We started with about 19 young men, and we just kind of gradually added a little bit more each year. So now we have a capacity of about 40 young men per year that we take on, and 12 of them are boarding students, right? So we have young men that are also coming to us from other cities from around the country. They live here on campus, here at our campus in Lithia Springs. We have a 78-acre campus that we are building out, that the students are participating in building out as a part of that program.
78-acre campus.
Yes, sir.
That's the type of campus I want to grow up on. Come again as a child. Wow. Absolutely. You were saying that. I didn't want to. Sorry to interrupt you. That was just startling, the number you gave.
Yeah. So we still continue to do our annual what we call the Rise to Manhood Rites of Passage retreat, and other outreach programs like that. We do mentoring at schools around the city, as well as cities around the country that we travel to throughout the year. But the primary thing that we do, and the primary thing that we're building is this private school. So we have like I said, a full-time tuition-free private school for middle and high school boys from grade 6 to 12. All right. So we have young men from 11 years old up to 18 years old. And they're going through this process with us where they're able to, study all of their academic subjects. But obviously we offer these academic subjects in a much different way than they're traditionally offered, right? So
Mhm.
they're not just, kind of sitting at the desk all day. They're doing it in a much more interactive, hands-on, practical way, in a way that's relevant to them. And in addition to these academics, they're also, being exposed to all four of the elements of SAVE. So they're doing service through going out every Friday, doing service projects around the city. And then we travel 4 times a year to other cities around the country. Just last week, we just got back from the Virgin Islands. We went to St. Croix, did a week-long service trip down there. But we traveled to other cities like Chicago and Detroit and Philly, New York, and many other cities around the country just doing service, right? So having them actively involved in serving our people. And then they do agriculture almost every day right here on our farm, right? So they're in the garden, they're in the orchard, they're working with goats, sheep, chickens. We have horses as well. And just really just being immersed in that agriculture environment. The students are learning vocational skills like carpentry and plumbing and electrical and other trades as well. And then they're all becoming entrepreneurs, right? So each one of our students right now is able to stand up and introduce themselves as the founders and CEOs of their own companies.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
So by the time they graduate from SAVE, they not only have a high school diploma, but they also have certifications in at least 2 certifications in a vocational trade. They have a LLC for their own business. They have college acceptances, and just the most important thing, even beyond all of those things, is really a refined character
Mhm.
and the acknowledgement and the knowledge of the fact that they are men who have been prepared to serve and lead,
That's
right? And in doing so with good character. So yeah, that's what it's all about in a nutshell.
Man, that's a beautiful nutshell, brother. That's a beautiful nutshell. Give us that website before we go any further, so I can make sure we're clear about that. Is there a website that we can
Absolutely.
get more
Absolutely.
information? Yes. What is it?
Yes, so the website is thesaveinstitute.org. So THESAVE institute.org.
thesaveinstitute.org. I'm going to type it into the chat for those of y'all joining us through social media and all of that as well, so you can check it out. thesaveinstitute.org. We're speaking with Brother Atiba Jones, founder of the Save Institute, talking about the great works that's happening. Again, remember this, put this in context. Those who say it cannot be done should not get in the way of those doing it. There are people complaining every day about Gen Z, about the state of our youth, about what's happening with the youth, how are they jacking up the community and doing this, that, and the third. And then when they ask the question, well, whose children are they? Everybody get quiet. They're our children. You know what I mean? The apple don't fall far from the tree. So, like, what are we really looking at? So,
That's right.
Brother Atiba, thank you so much for just taking the time out to be with us this afternoon. But more importantly, for taking the time, making that deliberate sacrifice. You were compelled. Something in your spirit spoke to you about what needed to be done. And I think this happens for everyone every day. And some of us, for whatever reason, no judgment, do not follow that call. You know what I mean? So we're grateful that you followed the call. Now, let's talk about how the community can support. We can't mention prices up here in terms of dollars and cents and all that. But however, it's clear resources, monetary resources are always needed, as you said earlier, funding and all that. But let's just talk about how ways that the community can support.
Yeah, I think one of the most effective ways that people have supported in the past and continue to support is by becoming what we call a SAVE champion.
Mm.
Right. So a SAVE champion is one who signs up to donate any amount every month. Right. So that could be $5, $10, $20. Some people are doing $100 or $200 a month, but signing up even $5 makes a big difference. Right. So we have right now, a pretty significant amount of people who are already given on a monthly basis like that. And that really goes a long way in helping us to keep our school tuition free. So definitely that's a big that's a big way. And then beyond that, beyond financial resources, just getting involved, especially especially men, right? We need more and more positive black male role models for our young men. They need to see brothers, setting the example, right? Because there's so many negative examples, right? So we need more positive black men getting involved. But then just then everybody, right? So because everybody can help in some way. So depending on whatever your background is, whatever your expertise is, bringing that to the table, right? So you might have a skill, you might have a passion, whatever it is that you have, bringing that to support the work that we're doing.
Beautiful. So all hands have the opportunity to be on deck, one way or another, to support the work that is being done. The 78-acre campus, is this open? Do you have tours available through the years? Is it a closed campus? How does that work?
Yeah, we definitely do tours. People love to come see the horses, see the animals in the farm. So yeah, and so definitely we actively have construction taking place.
True.
So it like right now we have trucks coming in, and there's actively things happening, but people are still welcome to come in and take a tour for sure.
Beautiful. And before we let you go, mindful of your time, thank you for taking time to be with us. In terms of some of those services, which I remember speaking to you, having a private conversation with you, and something just really caught my attention in terms of some of the services that the SAVE. I saw an ad or something that some of the students offer. Please expound on that.
Yeah, so absolutely. So, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I was inspired by the school down in Paraguay becoming a school that pays for itself, through utilizing the students, right, allowing them to gain experience and gain skills through operating revenue generating entities. So they get the skills, and at the same time, they're getting free education. So that's what we're striving to build. So we have a couple of the different, profit generating components to the program. So one is called Save Solutions, right? This is a student-led construction company that allows for students to go out into the community. There's primarily our senior students who have been with us for a while and have a certain amount of skills. They're able to go out into the community and do real projects for customers, whether it's residential construction or building agricultural infrastructure. So they're doing this in the community. And then we also have what we call impact farms, and that's our farm business where we're actually we actually sell different products and meats from the farm.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And again, the website is here, the saveinstitute.org. For those of y'all joining us online, you can see it on our chat. We got somebody calling. I don't know if they want to talk to you. Let me see. You got time to take a call?
Yes.
Let me see what's up. WRFG, you're live. WRFG. How you doing?
Name Majid, just listening to the program and just calling in to say, hey, I'd like to go to that school. I'm 80 years old, but man, listening to the attributes of the school and the beauty of it, I just like to attend, but I also like to get a number that I could send this donation to.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your call, beloved, and for your spirit of support. Brother Atiba, did you hear the brother? He needs to get a number. I said I need to ask you for that as well. So thank you for that call, beloved.
Yes, absolutely. So donations can be sent in a few different ways. There could be one, it could be made right on the website, thesaveinstitute.org/donate. Also through Zelle, support at thesaveinstitute.org. Cash App, $Save Institute. So feel free to utilize any of those methods for sending in donations.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Brother Atiba, and we pray that you continue to be richly blessed with all the support that is necessary to do such powerful work. You know what I mean? And including the appreciation of the children that you're serving. The more and more that we can come into our nature, we can see in real time. We can count the blessings around us and don't have to wait in retrospect, 30, 40 years back. Oh, that was something that really helped me out, you know what I mean? And, so we have this energy of gratitude, which just is like another one of those gifts that keeps giving, right? It just keeps opening up for more things to be grateful for. So we're grateful for you, brother. Grateful for the work that you're doing, the Save Institute. I'm definitely going to call you to book a tour. 78 acres seems like the type of space I want to spaz out on, you know what I mean? As a teenager, I'm with Brother Majid. I'm not regretting any of my years. I don't want to go back to teenage, and for something like this, it might be worth a little trip.
Indeed, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me here on the show. I appreciate also your mentorship over the years. I've learned so much from you directly and from watching you and the people that you've affected. So, very grateful for that and grateful to be here.
Much love, brother. Continued success. Our brother Atiba Jones joins us from the Save Institute in Atlanta, Lithia Springs to be precise, 78-acre campus. And before even you get into the size of the campus and all that, look at the impact, look at the size of the works. Even if it was being staged from a small room with little 5 points like this radio station, look at the size of the work. We're grateful. Simba Simbi, hold up that which holds us up. Hold up that which holds us up. The number is 404-523-8989. I want to get into something that we usually don't play up here. However, I have benefited much from it in terms of this astrological report. And it's the fact that we usually don't play it has nothing to do with how we feel about astrology. It's just, there's so much to do in a day, and we only have 2 hours a week to do so much. But these reports coming from Pam Gregory, we played some last week, really felt compelling. So I want to share some of this with you. And also, we're going to seal up with some of the voice of recently departed political stalwart, loved by many, controversial figure from the country of Guyana, somebody I knew all my life as my uncle when I met him, and had the opportunity to see him even a few months ago, who just recently made his transition. You heard some of it at the beginning of the show, Dr. Rupert Narayan. So we're going to hear some of him in his own words. First and foremost, check this out. It's an energy report. Number 404-523-8989.
About the first half of March and the total lunar eclipse that is coming up on the 3rd. So we are in some super powerful eclipse energy, as you will be well aware at the moment. I'm filming this on the 18th of February. And of course, the effect of the solar eclipse at 2850 of Aquarius that we had yesterday will go on for quite some weeks and will have consequences for many months to come. But we are now moving towards that total lunar eclipse, and that annular solar eclipse we anticipated to be seismic. There's still a lot more time to run on that, but certainly we've had some very seismic information, it's fair to say, coming out over the last few days. This is just the beginning. This is absolutely right on time for what was expected, because Aquarius is the sign linked to truth. It's square to, in the annular solar eclipse, it was square to Uranus, the ruler of that sign, and also as a planet. It's very closely linked to truth and awakening. The solar eclipse was virtually at the anoretic degree, the very last degree of Aquarius, and therefore a crisis is thrown up around truth. And so, and that solar eclipse as well was not only square to Uranus, but it was also sesquiquadrate, 135 degrees to Jupiter, also linked to truth and the law, justice, accountability. So we have so much to come. We're just at the very beginning of that process. If you are already feeling shocked, you ain't seen nothing yet. We're just at the beginning. But remember, you know, I've been talking about this for many months, about people in the public eye falling from grace if they've not acted with integrity and transparency. And that's a whole combination of factors. It's Uranus conjunct Algol until kind of mid-March. And that's to do with people losing their heads, you know, having their heads chopped off in terms of losing power. It's also to do with Saturn conjunct Neptune, a reality check on leaders. Aries, particularly Saturn, just on the 13th, 14th of February moved into Aries. That's to do with old traditional leadership as well. And so dissolution, Neptune, of that leadership. We've also had on the 1st of February the full moon in Leo, and Leo highlighted again, put a very bright light on leadership, celebrities, glamour, that kind of thing. It will also create a reality check on spiritual leaders. Again, reality check, Saturn, spiritual leaders, Neptune in Aries. So we've got a whole, you know, I could talk for an hour just about that we've expected people to fall from power, and whether they're politicians, leaders in other areas, spiritual leaders, celebrities, there's going to be an avalanche, I think, and people are going to be, if they haven't been aware of what's been going on, extremely shocked. And the rest of us who are able to hold some stability are going to have to hold that space for them with a great deal of compassion, because we were there once. You know, we went through our own awakening, but you know, we have to see this. We can't plaster over it. We can't spiritually bypass. It's essential that we see it, partly because that's a critical part of the awakening. And also, partly we have to take spiritual responsibility that our collective consciousness has produced such things, because we've given away our power to the external titles or authorities, whatever. But it's also to create a much stronger conviction that we're never going to let this happen again, that we are going to come together as one humanity, standing in love, standing in our light, and we're not going to do it again. And also, frankly, you just can't build a more loving world on rotten foundations. So we have to see it. And it's going to be destabilizing for many people. It could cause some psychosis even, all that Aquarian energy. So just be aware, this is, you know, this is the kind of storm that we're entering now. But for each of you, as I always say, you know, hold your stability, be the anchor, be the lighthouse, particularly if you already had some sense of what was coming. That's our collective duty, I think, our spiritual responsibility as well. And when I was preparing to do this today, I just happened to see the Sabian symbol for that annular solar eclipse from Dane Rudyard. Dane Rudyard was a brilliant astrologer, philosopher, author, And he here on his website is picking up the Sabian symbols that clairvoyant medium Elsie Wheeler downloaded for each of the degrees in 1925. And, you know, they're remarkably accurate. And with a Sabian symbol, you always have to round up to the next degree. So if we're still looking back to that annular solar eclipse, we move it up to 29 of Aquarius. And it almost made me kind of laugh out loud, because the Sabian symbol is a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, the capacity to utterly transform the character of one's consciousness. What is emphasized is the process of metamorphosis. In spiritual terms, this implies initiation. And this is exactly what we are right in right now. And so let the astrology reassure you, because I've been talking about this for so many months. You know, so much truth coming to light. That's part of the awakening, the shock, the, oh my goodness, you know, how could we not have known, in order that we can say, enough, we will stand our ground and create a better world. Now, all of this is going to create a lot more revolutionary energy. That solar eclipse square to Uranus is much more rebellious and revolutionary energy. And whether that is people taking to the streets and feeling very angry, whether it's a revolution of love, whether it's a revolution of choice, of deciding to just disengage as far as you possibly can from the system. And again, I've talked about that at length in previous videos, but that's what really initiated that eclipse, this eclipse season that we are now in. So that's what, and of course, the personal planets move over that 29 degrees of Aquarius regularly. The sun moves over it once a year, but the fact we have a solar eclipse there that's so strong really emphasizes that Sabian symbol that I've just shared with you. And it's just so, again, right on time, isn't it, for all the themes I've been talking about for the last 2 years. So what I'm going to be talking about here is a total lunar eclipse that happens in Virgo. It happens at 12:52 of Virgo, very early in the month on the 3rd. And in order to have an eclipse, you have to have either a new moon or a full moon, either at the north node end of the lunar axis or the south node end. And so here in the annular solar eclipse we've just had on the 17th of February, it was at the north node end, emphasizing, that's where the north node is, so emphasizing moving forwards, the future, the new, the visionary as we move forwards. This total lunar eclipse, and it's strong because it's total, is at the south node end. So not only is it a lunar eclipse, i.e. a full moon, i.e. the peak, the culmination of the moon cycle, but it's also conjunct the south node. So it's emphasizing, whether it's in your own life or in the collective, endings, completions, closures. See where 12:52 of Virgo falls in your own chart, which house area. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to the link below. You can get a 2-part video series that you can watch as many times as you like, forever, to help you understand, with all of these updates I do, where these points fall in your own chart and what it means for you. This is not a personalized birth chart analysis. These are teaching videos, but it really is the beginning of your astrological journey. So then you can find out which house area, which area of life this applies to for you, and off you go with learning astrology more fully. So now the path of the eclipse is much more overpopulated areas. We know that the solar eclipse was largely falling over Antarctica and the southern tip of South Africa and South America. Remember, where the eclipse path falls, it tends to bring some of, at least, of those geographies into the news in some way. So Antarctica has always been a very mysterious, secret area. You know, you can't book your your annual holiday there for sure. So it'll be very interesting in the coming months to see what unfolds from there. But this one, the total lunar eclipse, I'll show you the chart in a moment, falls over Northeast Asia, Western North America, Eastern Australia, New Zealand, Pacific, Japan, and Eastern China. So a lot of densely populated areas there. And also just to say that part of the eclipses, the effect of the eclipses is either earthquake or volcanic activity. We've had quite a bit of that, having a lot of volcanic activity right now. Seismic, shocking news, etc., events, but also extreme weather. So we've had a ton of extreme weather. I understand there's some fires happening in America right now. They've also had very unusual snowstorms down the East Coast. There have been huge, very destructive storms in southern Europe, massive flooding currently in southwest France, and also in New Zealand as well. And actually where I am in the UK, huge amounts of flooding. I mean, I think in my particular area, I think this year, which is going on for about 7 weeks now, we're into 2026. I think we've had 1, maybe 2 days with no rain. It's, yeah, we're growing webbed feet here. So yeah, so part of this is natural, part of this is unnatural. Of course, it's also partly Gaia going through her own rebirth and shedding these millions of years of trauma. So what is Virgo to do with? Well, Virgo is to do with health. So at eclipses, we see things that are brought to light, as we are seeing already with the annular solar eclipse, things being brought to light that we didn't see before, to do with health, what's going to be revealed with health, because the Pisces Virgo axis is very linked to that. It's linked to the immune system, it's linked to the blood, particularly the Pisces end. You'll see in a moment we have a lot of planets in Pisces. It's also linked to systems. So we may see, some systems collapsing, some systems struggle because of the there's a lot of geomagnetic activity going on right now, a lot of solar activity and solar storms, etc. And I know that there's some radio blackouts currently, and I think part of the South Pacific areas. So, expect this kind of volatility going forwards. And that's why you have to be stable within yourself when all this is swirling around us. The news, the politics, the revelations, the weather, the flooding, we have to find our own anchor. That's this evolution, this ascension, this upgrade for humanity is through our physicality, through our body. Our bodies are antennae acting between heaven and earth to stabilize these very high frequency, fast incoming cosmic energies so we can ground them, not only into ourselves, but into Gaia to help to stabilize Gaia too. So that's what this is all about. It's not an out there, it's an in here. It's an inside job, this whole process. It's also because lunar eclipse is always to do with endings. Virgo is to do with your daily habits, your daily routines. So this could be recognizing that you're very routine, you've done it for years and years and years in a certain way, a certain routine. Can you even change it up a little bit, do it in a different order? Or are you recognizing that some aspects of this just aren't serving you anymore and you just have to let them go? That's very much, letting it go is very much part of a full moon, and this is a very big full moon. It's also to do with employment, and I think employment is going to be very highlighted here because, of course, with the rapid, just exponential growth of AI, that is making a lot of people redundant very suddenly, because AI is able to take over some very routine, repetitive jobs. So what do those people do? not only may lose a salary, they may lose a sense of daily purpose and structure as well. Their daily routine disappears because they no longer have a job. So this is going to, shine a light on some very big areas in society. And I think the revelations that are going to come out are not just linked to the Epstein files. They're going to be right across society in many, many areas of our lives. So be aware and be prepared for that. So really think about what is culminating, what is closing, what is completing for you in that house area where 1252 of Virgo lies. And Virgo is also about purification, as I say, this sense of purification, and really do try as we move forward so rapidly. We're now in the year of the fire horse, and boy, is this going to be dynamic energy. Try and purify your thinking process, purify your diet as far as you are able to, really clean diet. Really say to yourself, do I need to do a detox? This sense of purification, to be as pure as you can physically and mentally, because Virgo, of course, is ruled by Mercury. It's our mind as well, our daily, not good enough, young enough, pretty enough, rich enough, all of that gunge that runs in our head so unhelpfully. Again, post-it notes around your kitchen cupboards, your fridge, etc. What are you thinking about? So you can catch that kind of daily grunge that can pull you down. Also, Virgo is concerned with detail. It's very concerned with micromanaging sometimes, being a bit of a worrywart or real perfectionism with Virgo. 99% is not good enough. You've got to get absolutely 100%, otherwise you'll beat yourself up. So it's this sense of great focus on detail and getting the T's crosses and the I's dotted, and a sense of the detail needing to be exact and right. But actually, as we've talked many times in these videos, we're moving towards something that's more fluid, more malleable, more flowing, more ethereal. And that, of course, is all the Pisces energy. And you'll see in the chart in a moment how many Pisces, planets in Pisces we have. So let's take a look at this chart. So I set this, as always, for England.
Public speech said that WPA should make the wills, and of course 3 members of the WPA were murdered during that period, 1979-80.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, young Ohini Kwama, who was an outstanding cooperator, he was a cooperative activist, and he was in fact the person who was running our party center at the time. And the police alleged that he had been ferrying arms or something in the middle of the street, and he was gunned down in broad daylight. So he was the first. And then Edward Dublin was killed in Linden, unprovoked. The police shot him, and there was a sense of terror. There was a general sense of terror. We were all under 24-hour surveillance. Our houses were being ransacked on a regular basis. Many of us were not sleeping in our own beds night after night. It was a very, very tense and difficult period.
And all of this because you were mobilizing people on the streets,
and because, you see, Burnham was facing in the civil rebellion something he had not had to face before.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that black people were on the streets against him. You see, when the PPP had organized their protests of Indian sugar workers and so, Burnham did not have to bother about this. He had this under control. But when that rebellion began, and it was multiracial, people of all classes, people of all ages, people coming to public meetings as though to a celebration, the impact of the cultural work we were doing on the streets at the time, there was just an immense amount of energy and the dictator was very nervous.
And of course,
There's
the
no doubt about
person at the center of this rebellion who emerged as the leader, Dr. Walter Rodney.
Of course.
And you mentioned just now that black people came onto the streets, African Guyanese.
Absolutely.
And that's crucial. Talk a little bit about Walter Rodney's work and his influence on that section of the population in terms of bringing them into the anti-dictatorial movement.
Well, it had to do really with a lot of it, I think now, when I think about it, had really to do with the power of his own personality and a kind of integrity of personality itself. Mm-hmm. And some of his activities were really so outstanding and extraordinary, the demonstration, the exemplary nature of his life. I recall during the Arnold Rampersad trial, this was a trial where the police had arrested a PPP activist from the quarantine, accused him of murder. He had gone through one trial. I think he went through a second trial. They moved the trial to Georgetown. They were determined to hang this man. And they moved the trial to Georgetown because they said the state could not get a fair trial in the quarantine, where in Georgetown they would get a jury mostly of African Guyanese people. And Burnham intended to play the race game and manipulate these people. And Walter went to the street corners. And I remember that evening at Louisa Row, him talking about that he was speaking as a black man and his sense of incredible shame as he saw black brothers and sisters coming into the court lying and attempting to hang his Indian brother. And there was something in the quality of that kind of commitment to people, regardless of race and class and all of that was very inspiring to people.
So you became a direct challenge to, at least that's how Burnham saw it.
Absolutely. And you see the defiance, Rodney's defiance, the fact that the dictator required people to be quiet, compliant, afraid, and the culture of silence that had built up around in Guyana was really quite extraordinary. Nobody was prepared to say anything. Everybody was frightened. And here came this rather slight young man, someone who could be working anywhere in the world, came with immense distinction at the age of, in his late 30s, and began to stand up to Mr. Burnham, mocked him, got people laughing at him. In fact, went out of his way to break down this cordon of awe that Burnham had managed to erect around himself. And Rodney just punctured all of that and took the clothes, stripped the emperor naked. And that I think was the greatest inspiration to people. And the fact that he could not be silenced. When they prevented him from using a microphone, he rolled up a cardboard and spoke through it, a funnel. He could not be silenced. And I think that that example of absolute defiance in relation to military power, threats, and all of these things, and his uncompromising attitude towards the unity of the working people, the work he did for the sugar workers. I recall myself when I went back in 77, that the very first political activity I got involved in 77 when I returned was mobilizing strike relief for a big sugar strike that had taken place that year.
The 135-day
strike, which was 77. Yeah. And I got very involved in that. And Walter was going around speaking at GAU meetings, encouraging the sugar workers and giving immense solidarity to them.
And something that people don't talk about is the role that Walter and the WPA played in terms of mobilizing African Guyanese against the propaganda that Indians wanted all the money. That's why they were striking.
In fact, the PPP handled that sugar strike rather badly. And we had to do a lot of work to counter the propaganda that Burnham was putting out. You know, the sugar workers want everything, this, that. And that was having its effect on the hard-pressed public sector workers who happened to be African Guyanese, on the police and so on. So he positioned the Indians and the sugar workers in a certain way. And part of our work in that period was to demolish that and attempt to get the African working people to see that the struggle of the sugar workers was a just struggle, that it was not dissimilar from their struggle, and attempt to work at this kind of communality of interests among these groups.
So in a certain sense, Walter Rodney and the Working People's Alliance were able to break the back of the dictatorship.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where it first cracked. I mean, there's no doubt that it first cracked in 79. And the dictatorship never really recovered itself.
And of course, Walter Rodney was murdered in June 1980.
In June 1980, he was struck down in a bomb blast, killed on June 13th. And interestingly, you know, he didn't die at a moment of of high mobilization. It was a quieter movement in the rebellion, a quieter moment in the rebellion when he was struck down. And of course, the popular movement went into a kind of recoil and went into and the reaction then mounted. And between June 79 and June 1980 and the end of that year, Burnham felt confident enough to hold elections in 1980. He had gotten rid of
he became executive president before the elections.
First
Let's talk a little bit about the Rodney murder and what has happened since then, because up till now, I mean, it's almost 20 years, and we still have not had a proper investigation into the murder of Rodney. Talk a little bit about where that is at the moment, because a couple of years ago, Rodney's son went back to Guyana, staged a demonstration in front of the president's office. That's President Jagan. And the PPP had started to put some things in motion. Where that is at the moment?
Well, we have to back up a little bit. Nothing happened, of course, for many, many years. Every anniversary of June 13th, we would call for a commission of inquiry. Well, you know, we were, for as long as Burnham was there, this would get nowhere. But we continued every June 13th to be active, and it was not only WPA in Guyana, but Rodney's people around the world. And as you know, Walter was someone with tremendous impact in Africa, the United States, Europe, and so on. And all over the place, groups would, in fact, around June, be mobilizing. There were June 13 committees trying to bring pressure on Burnham and trying to flush out the executioner, because we knew where he had gone. We had tracked down Gregory Smith. He had gone to Cayenne. We knew he was living there.
Gregory Smith was the person who was
the penetration agent who, in fact, gave the bomb to Donald Rodney. And you know, the obscene thing about that was that the only action the police took following the assassination of Walter was to charge Donald for possession of explosives. And he was charged and convicted. And he appealed against that. And the appeal up to this day has not been heard in the appeal court. I'll come back to that. But so after Burnham died in 1985, and Mr. Hoyt, on acceding to the presidency in 86, did begin a rather cautious reform movement in his party and in the state. I don't think myself that Hoyt is given sufficient credit for attempting to lead a reform movement. I mean, it was a limited reform movement, but you know, he was dealing with a lot of criminals around him in the political party, and my own feeling was that there were real constraints and real limits. But he attempted to lead that kind of reform movement, and in 1987, 88, I think it was.
Yes, it is.
He held an inquest, and we had been calling for an inquest for a long time. He held this inquest. But like a lot of Hoyt's reforms of that period, he had tiptoed into reform, and what we had was a show inquest, because the two main witnesses, namely Gregory Smith and Donald Rodney, were not available. We had offered to get Donald Rodney to come and give his evidence to the inquest, but the magistrate, who was well named, Mr. Pratt, didn't see fit to wait on them. So he went ahead and held this inquest, and the conclusion of the inquest was that Rodney had died by misadventure, thereby repeating the PNC fable about Rodney, you know, this extremely distinguished and high-powered historian being so stupid as to go and bomb a prison with a bomb that couldn't destroy a car. But that was the story they had put out. And that's the story that the inquest attempted to put an official stamp on. Well, we brushed that aside. Continued with the work. Brother Kwayana did a very, very ingenious thing. He went to the courts as a private citizen and laid a charge of murder against Smith and asked the courts for a warrant for his arrest. Under our laws, you can do it as a private citizen. It was a private action. Well, the chief magistrate at the time, Mr. Birch Smith, denied his application. But at the end, I'll tell you why that was significant. So we heard nothing more of that. Well, we went on. We had democratic elections in 92. The PPP came to power. Some of us, not all of us, but some of us had expected that with the PPP in power in 92, well, we would get somewhere towards getting a commission of inquiry and getting to the bottom of this murder. Nothing happened. For 92, 93, WPA said, well, you know, they've just come into power. I don't think we should try to pressure them too much. This is a delicate matter. The whole question of the transition from, you know, the PNC to the PPP was really a tender time. So we didn't really want to put too much pressure on them. So we didn't do much. So 92 came and went, 93 came and went, 94 came and went. And at each anniversary, we're now beginning to say, well, you know, what is happening? It's time we saw some movement on this. And it was only until Shaka Rodney came and, in fact, parked himself outside of the Attorney General's office.
Shaka Rodney is
Walter's son. And he came, and it was over a Christmas holiday and into the New Year, and he fasted. Carried out a fast outside of the Attorney General's office. And it was after that fast that I think the PPP was, moved to act. And they did act. They invited the International Commission of Jurists to send an investigating mission to review the documents and the case. It was a limited mandate. And I recall that they came in April of that year, and they conducted, looked at the evidence. They weren't able to see all of the evidence because the police files mysteriously could not be found while they were present in Georgetown. The police files subsequently turned up after they left. We gave evidence to this commission, and we suggested other people who we felt could be of assistance to them. So they, in fact, left after and made a short report. And in the report, they made a number of recommendations. One, they said that Donald Rodney's trial, his appeal against conviction, should really be completed because justice delayed is justice denied, and the appeal court should hear Rodney's thing and be finished with that. The second was that the inquest was, to use the language of the jurists, marred by grave defects. What they said, it was rubbish, we had to throw it away. And thirdly, there were clearly grounds for a full-fledged commission of inquiry with powers. And it later emerged that the ICJ, the International Commission of Jurists, were themselves prepared to be the body mounting the full investigation. Very soon after that, the cabinet established a subcommittee that was going to do preparatory work for this full commission. And that essentially was the last that was heard of the idea of a full commission. We heard nothing else. A year later, again under mounting pressure from us, by this time we are really quite appalled at the pace of things. Gregory Smith was still in position. And we were saying, look, at the very least, we have to charge Gregory Smith with murder and bring him before the courts. Prepare your commission, take your time. That's good. Yeah. But we know where the murderer is. And he should come and face the courts of Guyana and let him say what he has to say.
And of course, he's in French Guyana.
As we speak.
Yeah.
He's in French Guyana. So we finally got them to charge him. On June 13th, I think it was, 2 years ago?
Yes, 1996.
2 years ago, we got them to go to the courts. We went to the courts in front of Magistrate Juman Yassin and Dudnath Singh, who had been our lawyer all through the arson trial and the treason trials, and a very close friend of Walter's. We went there, and they actually charged Gregory Smith with murder and issued an arrest warrant. Well, this was quite a development because apart from Guyana's action, nothing had happened. So the question now became the question of approaching the French. We have no extradition treaty with France, so it had to be done diplomatically. A number of hurdles were immediately thrown up. That the French, under European law, would not be allowed to extradite a person to a country that had the death penalty. Although our lawyers subsequently found out that there was precedent. If the highest authorities in Guyana were to give a guarantee to the French that were he to be convicted of murder, he would not be executed, then they would be able to send him. So they asked for all the documents, all the evidence, the statements from the witnesses. Those were prepared. It took a very long time, but they were prepared finally, and they were sent. And the latest thing is that they are now asking that they be translated into French. So the business of translating these documents into French, I don't know how far that has reached. When I spoke to the foreign minister, it could not have been more than about 2 or 3 months ago on this matter. He told me they were actively working on that. I subsequently came to understand that the French have some rule, a 10-year, what do you call it, where the thing expires, where you can no longer act. Well, if nothing had been done for 10 years, then the statute of limitations, there was a statute of limitations, it ran out. And this is where the beauty of Guyana's private action comes in. That private action taken almost eccentrically by Guyana
As only Guyana can do.
As only he can do. Turns out to have been absolutely crucial. Because of that private action, which constitutes action in the courts, he has not been able to. They have not been able to invoke the 10-year limitation.
Yes.
So the thing is active. I'm hoping that we can solve this diplomatic thing quickly, because Smith is a wanted man. He's now wanted by the police, wanted by the courts, and we want the French to move him. And if he comes to Guyana, we want him to face a trial, and we will guarantee he gets a fair and free trial, a fair trial. And then perhaps parallel to that, or following that, we can have a commission of inquiry if we want to get to the fuller truth and to deal with the intellectual authors of the action. But that is
yes. Let's and it's interesting that you have updated us on the status of that case, because a lot of people have been asking what is happening to the matter. In fact, the PPP has been charged with dragging its feet. Let's talk about what your party has been doing, the WPA, to keep the memory of Walter Rodney alive.
Well, it's very interesting. I've just come, you yourself were present, from this international Walter Rodney symposium. They had a big gathering on Walter Rodney's legacy at Binghamton. And it was a most inspiring experience, I found, because it gathered up scholars from really all over the world. Some came from Africa, all over the United States, some came from Europe, and came there and essentially put forward the work that they themselves had been doing. And there were many Rodneyists among them, people like Horace Campbell and Winston James, and people I personally hadn't seen Winston James since the days of the 1980s when we were.
George Lamin was there.
George Lamin was there, gave a most inspiring address. And it just said to me, that here we were at the end of the century, approaching the new millennium. When we look at Africa, when we look at the part of the world that really engaged Walter Rodney, and the challenges that this world faces, challenges in relation to the WTO and trade arrangements and globalization and the agonies of IMF conditionalities and where we have gone, and you see that these ideas of Walter Rodney are more appropriate than ever, that the tradition is so rich, and that people are again turning to him for an explanation of this condition in which we find ourselves. And I believe recently there was quite an important gathering in Africa, where a lot of African leaders were getting together, and people were saying, well, Walter Rodney wrote How Europe Underdeveloped Africa in the 1970s. It's now 20 years after that. Where has Africa gone? Where has Africa gone? What has happened to development, and so on. So a lot of the questions that he had posed and the analyses he had made and so on are clearly alive and well and need revisiting. In Guyana, what we have been attempting to do through our political work, of course, is to keep up the work of education, to keep up the work of documentation, because part of Rodney's tremendous contribution as a historian was to really attempt to tell the history of the voiceless, the history of the repressed, to recuperate the history of the working people, which official historiography had done its best to either ignore or to suppress. And he was able to excavate a lot of that history.
And his last book, The History of the Guyanese Working People, 1881 to 1905.
Very good example of that method.
All over, at the conference, women feminists were talking about how we treated gender issue in that, and that's a development in terms of widening the breadth of Rodney's work. You in Guyana, your party has been talking recently about setting up a Walter Rodney Institute.
We have set up a Walter Rodney Institute. In fact, we launched the institute at Binghamton.
Right.
And this institute is going to be able, in the first place, to really draw in, create this global network of Rodneyists and activists out there.
If you give a little more than you take, and if you try to fix more than you break, if you're the kind who takes the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you. If you stand up for those down on their knees and lend a voice to those who cannot speak, if you shine a little light, give sight to the ones who've lost their way, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, there's a place up there for people like you. If you walk around with your heart on your sleeve, and if you're trying to be the change you want to see, if you lay down your life for love so someone could be saved, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, there's a place up there for people like you. People like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, yeah, there's a place up there for people like you. I know you're out there, so keep doing what you do, 'cause there's a place up there for people like you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Out of many, one people we are.
Found